Aha! Right. Welcome, Imperial citizens. Hopefully, you can hear us right now. Do let us know in chat if you can't, and I will adjust sound levels. Right. Welcome, Imperial citizens, to the second Problems of Priests, where we answer your personal dilemmas with virtuous nice. Oh, they can't hear us. Excellent. Thank you, Dagan. Where we answer your personal dilemmas with virtuous advice. Welcome to those who may have joined us from the Ask Me Anything earlier on, with the benevolent embodiments of virtue who rule the events of our world. I hope you have been sufficiently enlightened. You're very quiet to me, but that might be me. Okay, right. I am Mile Donjon, Yearfolk Pride Troubadour of House Remise, and joining me today on the Heliopticon is a man reputed to be able to look at a battlefield with a druid miasma pillars and calculate exactly how many exorcists he needs to get shot of them. That's right, it's the Empire's first and only High Exorcist, unless there was another one before and Nikovar happened to any record of them. Thanks, Nikovar. It's Solus, the Waxing Sun. Solus, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am Solus of the Spire of the Waxing Sun, and I believe I qualify for discussing magic and the way by virtue of being a priest of wisdom and a student of both summer and winter.
Well, yeah, sounds legit to me. Right, okay. Thank you very much to the Imperial citizens who have, you've just been referred to as the best Ghostbuster. Thank you to the Imperial citizens who have sent us various levels of question, of complexity, and otherwise. We will now go on to the questions sent to us by you, the wonderful citizens of the Empire. So the first question is from the Dour Draugr. That's him, his pronouns. Theological disagreements between priests will and do happen. As such disagreements have the very real potential to cause extensive rifts within the fabric of the Empire, this is not a theoretical issue. It's a very Draugr way of looking at it. Therefore, in your subjective experience, how do you A, personally mediate such disagreements, and B, how would you personally press your point of view home in a way that results in victory? That's a very Draugr question, frankly. Huh.
Well, do you want to start? I don't know how much I can talk about mediation, as I am often quite opinionated myself, and so probably taking part rather than helping.
Helping. I too enjoy helping in debates. I very much like, why would you want to mediate a disagreement? Surely disagreements are the very fuel of the synod itself. Like, let there be 1,000 voices, all arguing with each other, and that is the way you would find the most optimal and best response, and keep progressing on through to find the best way to do the way. This.
Absolutely, the way of virtue is an unfinished work, and investigations are incredibly useful. In terms of argument, certainly. I'd hope that reasoned evidence would go a long way. Well, that is perhaps a very as an answer. If I needed to persuade people of my point of view, I convince an influential figure who I can then reference.
Argument from authority. Yeah, fair enough. Or is that an influential figure of the past, as in a sort of exemplar or something?
No, I think someone whose views are respected in the synod, and they so this person, to have convinced them, I must have. I'll have needed a reasonable argument. It's not just some lone individual theory.
Huh.
Yes.
Oh, no, fair enough. Yes, indicating that you've convinced other people, and yes, to be honest, that would be probably why I might go to my assembly and try and get and try and pass some sort of judgment with the great majority. That's one hell of a convincing argument, isn't it?
Yes, if you can find time to talk to your assembly, of course.
Well, some of us are not the High Exorcist, so. Yes, I do have.
But also, priest of wisdom are very hard to tie down. Other than national, that's actually much easier.
Oh yes, no, that's fair enough. Yeah. Do you do the same thing the Brass Coast do, where they sort of head en masse to the the hub there?
Somewhat, yes. It's meet in person, agree pretty much how we intend to vote, and then process it.
That's interesting. That is not what happens in the Danish National Assembly. We certainly might discuss something, debate it some more gloriously, and then probably all go away with 20 different opinions. But to be honest, we have managed to get. I would say we've got greater majority on a couple of things. All right. There we go. So next question, if that's all right. So this is from Skeptical in Semmerholm. Sounds like one of my country folk. He, him pronouns. My friend discovered some weird-looking fruit near a regio and decided that it was touched by spring, and they should make magic booze out of it. I'm pretty sure the tree is just ill, and anyone who drinks their extremely suspicious green moonshine will be as well. Now, they've started telling me I just need to have more ambition and courage. I'm as adventurous as anyone, but right now I think they could use a lot more wisdom and vigilance. Who's right?
So, I think I'd start by saying that I don't want to denigrate the idea that consumption and use of magical vis, for example, is not a useful thing, if that's what it is. But understand. Well, of course, I'm a piece of wisdom. I will say that understanding is vital. I'm going to think on this one a bit. Why don't you?
So I feel like there's a false dichotomy here. If I understand from the various experimental herb users and potion brewers of the Empire, at some point someone will have had to learn how to make Scops mead, for instance. You don't discover the properties of things unless you try them. Like, now, admittedly, the first people to try them, they're going to be running into, probably the ones who are going to run into the most difficulty. But, so, I mean, like when you try anything experimental, by all means, make your mysterious spring booze, if that's what you like. I'm assuming it's not fizz. They would have said fizz if it was. But of course, and then the first person to try it needs to, with wisdom and vigilance, needs to be able to say a healer, and so perhaps some sort of emetic as well, or anything else in case you need to eject the substance. Just be vigilant about your booze-related experimentation and make sure you have a healer on standby in case it goes wrong explosively. But yeah.
But yeah, I would also say, because there are those who are unduly scared of magic in all its forms.
Yes.
That things which are influenced by magic. So many of those across the Empire who tend for farms will use magic, including swing magic, to make them produce more produce, and that produce is in no way dangerous. It's just more plentiful. It won't cause you to develop lineage. It won't. It's no use in ritual magic or any of that. The magic happens and then it's done. And so, depending on what this is, it may well be entirely benign. It may be mundanely poisonous.
Yeah, but again, we have means to deal with mundane poison, generally speaking. I understand there are some quite interesting ones out there that require some very complex means to deal with them.
Something which just grew near a otherwise uninteresting regio should be fine. Now, I'm sure we've all had stories of particularly
weird regios.
Interesting regio. Yeah.
Oh yes, some of us have them very close to home.
And if it's known that if it were known that our Halogen were particularly interested in it, you probably shouldn't eat the stuff nearby. Probably. But again, that's quite a specific case, and your standard weak regio, I don't think should be a problem, magically speaking.
Yeah, let's do let us know how it goes. Right. Okay. So next question then. This is from Thoughtful in Theranin, she/her pronouns. Is a romantic preference for one lineage over another, and others, a fault in virtue, or merely an appreciation of certain personality traits? I wonder who this could be from.
Mutual friend, yes.
Yes, I think so.
Now, I imagine this might be more directed towards you because of the Dornish. I'm being very careful not to offend here, but
oh no! Please try to offend. Obsession.
Yes. Conflation, perhaps.
Oh no, we've been very careful about the conflation.
Love, romance, partnership, all these things, and virtue. And I would give perhaps quite a what might be seen as a boring and technical answer that one certainly can use these as prisons to explore virtue and pursue virtue, but it's not inherent. There's no reason necessarily that your choice of partner or any of that has to come into your expression of virtue.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a curious question, isn't it? Really, like, would your preference for mead over beer be an appreciate have any effect on your virtue? Unless, of course, you sold the one prosperously, or like with anything else really that can exist in life, it could have something to do with virtue, or it might have nothing at all to do with virtue. Like it's from a sort of Dornish perspective of true love, and I refer back to the Judgment of the Synod, which says that refers to love as a laudable quality, not a virtue, but a laudable human quality, and that all laudable human qualities may potentially be an aid in the pursuit of virtue. So if it happens to be that you're
very carefully worded, wasn't it? Yes.
Oh yes. My kudos and may Simaeus of Felix's Watch pass through the labyrinth rapidly and well for that particularly excellent set of wording, which I believe might have been done in concert with other members of Felix's Watch, if memory serves. Yes, laudable qualities. And if you find laudable qualities in the particular lineage that you are most fond of, then have at it. If that is where your true love lies, have at it, I say. I can see no reason why not.
I certainly have very little time for those who say, well, you aren't ambitious if you aren't trying everything, perhaps.
There are many things that I would prefer not to try, thank you.
Indeed.
I don't fancy, for instance, going on a wine tasting binge in Druid country. Like, I am happy not to try that. Like,
indeed.
There are many things that I prefer not to try. Thank you very much. Yes, but by all means, if you want to choose one lineage over other, then be it. I mean, like doing so, I would imagine you might have a particularly good time always dating Naga. You know, like, or perhaps I might have a better time always dating Draugr because we don't understand each other. Who knows? Right. Okay. Next question. How are we doing for time? We are still fine for time. So this one is from Vengefulon the Vassar, pronouns he, him. Honoured bishops, or whatever you call yourselves, I see we have a leaguer, for generations the Ratineri Carter have hounded and persecuted my family. Every deal we do, the Ratineri seek to undercut us. Every night out, the Ratineri come to fight us. Every festival, the Ratineri seek to show us up. They claim that our family did the same to them in generations past, that this is their reckoning. But my grandparents tell me that Ratineri have always been liars and thieves, and pay no attention to them. My question to you is this: why would it be so wrong to pay them back in kind for every indignity that they've heaped upon us? To show them what happens when you fuck with us over and over, treating us as less than human. What the hell is wrong with a bit of bloody vengeance every once in a while? There's a lot to unpack here, but perhaps we should throw the entire suitcase into the Vassar.
Yes. So again, I need. We should acknowledge that we're not leagues and we're not familiar with the art of reckoning.
Mm-hmm. Thank goodness. I mean, your Liga traditions, of course, are as a Pride priest. I say that you should follow them to the best of your ability and be proud of your but it is not my traditions, and I'm not entirely sure I would be comfortable with pursuing them. Carry on with the league things. Good. Right.
And I would certainly looking to right understood wrongs that were done to one's ancestors. Does the for the sake of doing so, it is well. Looks and smells a lot of vengeance. Yes. Motivation is key. If you are manoeuvring against another character in order that you and yours are more prosperous, then that is one thing. But if you are looking to only damage without, if the only gain you have is the damage they take, then that is the problem. Motivation really is vital.
Yeah. Yes, that would make sense. It's very clear from the wording here that what's being pursued here is the false virtue slash of what else do we call it? Malign force of vengeance slash justice. Which if that is your motivating factor, then no, it's very wrong. Don't do it. Yeah. As you say, if you are there are it is possible to I have seen some of the or seen some or had described to me some of the auras of the false virtue of vengeance slash justice, as I imagine you have as well. What is being,
I have experience, yes.
What is being described here, this paragraph, is very much we're concerningly describing of it, to be honest. The idea that thing should be hated or put upon simply because it is different in some way. It seems like
so there is a difference between hatred and justice, or vengeance, how I want to say it, and
true.
Two characters can be very similar in many ways, but have these irreconcilable historical differences.
I would worry that one was heading towards several possible false virtues on this front, but if your actions are on the basis of pride, on the basis of prosperity, on the basis, but this does not strike me as either one. If you were seeking, for instance, to say your carter made excellent swords, and you were simply seeking to undercut them on the excellent sword making, like healthy competition. This does not strike me as healthy competition, and therefore I suspect it will impede your progress through the labyrinth, because you're not focusing on proving yourselves. You're not focusing on improving your own pride. You're not focusing on out-competing others. You're focusing on them.
Absolutely, and this whole idea of tearing down. If what you're looking to do, if you feel that you cannot prosper near to them, then your first recourse should not be to damage them in a fashion. You should consider various things. You should consider. I realise many people in the league are very tied to their city, but if you could prosper more in one of the other great cities, then and you are on the path to prosperity, you should certainly consider moving, for example, but rather than continuing this fight. If the fight is damaging you and your ability to prosper, then it is okay to leave.
Absolutely okay to leave. Yes. It strikes me that you're allowing this Ratineri carter to have far too much power over you and the progress of your soul. Also, as a whole, free yourself of them with a small f. Free yourself of the effect they are having on you. But either leave where they are, or no longer let them matter to you. Just out everything.
Yeah. So, and again, I'm going to be a bit Catholic. I'm going to talk about pride, but
Far away.
if you wish to, it would be fine to perfect your craft such that the things you make are simply better of better quality, and that would be a good way of pursuing pride.
Mm-hmm.
And if ultimately you truly are more skilled, then the conflict wouldn't matter.
Absolutely. Right. We do actually have a question from the chat, which I think I will throw into the middle, as it is an interesting one, which is there a benefit to dedicating one virtue over being a priest of the way?
Now, I don't know how much you want me to sit here and just talk about my job.
Carry on. We still have at least an hour, over an hour.
So speaking in terms of the work I do in and from Anvil, priests of the way are incredibly useful, as they can assist others in ceremonies, and if there's a matter which is very important to the Assembly of Courage, for example, and they need to perform rites, but may not have the people in their number, then being able to lean on the Assembly of the Way is incredibly useful, and it's
like a sort of Temeshwari army knife of priests.
Yes, indeed. And also it is the case that I certainly I'm priest wisdom, but I feel fairly comfortable talking about a number of virtues. I'm sure the same is true for you.
Oh, right, yes.
So I identify wisdom because it is the path that I walk, but also I feel best at it is the virtue I am most comfortable teaching, and either of those reasons would be a good one to dedicate, but neither is necessary.
Absolutely.
I'm very fond of the idea of people who are excellent teachers of one virtue, but not on that path, joining that assembly. That's an idea which pleases me. I don't think it happens much.
As in, sort of showing up to the virtue assembly to find.
Well, no. So fundamentally, as we understand it, dedication is. The act of meeting somebody out and marking someone as a dedicant of wisdom.
Aye, the actual
doesn't make them more wise.
The right.
In a fashion. It's the things they do, and so. If I felt that I was best at teaching loyalty, I could dedicate to loyalty, join the assembly, do that stuff, but still walk the path with it myself.
Oh, yeah. Well, yes. I suppose there's nothing to stop you from.
No, and it's a good point. I think it is to remind people that priests of wisdom are not necessarily more wise than you. They just like to think they are.
So with my particular virtue, I would argue that priests of pride are usually extremely full of pride. It takes an awful lot of. You've got to have a certain amount before you actually even go, I think I'm going to walk that path then. But there are a few who I think perhaps could do with a little more pride in themselves. But that's a path, and there's nothing to stop you from dedicating to pride in order to improve your pride and to get better, become better at lifting yourself and your fellows up.
But yeah, the idea that the dedication isn't what matters; it's the acts you take and the way you live that matter. When the laity choose to dedicate, I make a very big point of me standing there and performing the rite doesn't matter. It's very much a recognition more than anything else. They have chosen them, and making that choice is really important. Much more so than getting the priest in to, in many ways, sign paperwork.
Yeah, I mean, we can down allow and do a rite over you, but you got to keep on doing the virtue all the time from then on, that sort of thing. Yeah, from an ambition perspective, which again, not my virtue, but also what I'm interested in, and I think there's a lot between ambition and pride, to be honest. The Assembly of the Way tends to be a little smaller sometimes, I think. No, I don't think it's one of the largest of the ones. So if you were an
I think it used to be very large. It's waned over the last few years.
So if one were in some way ambitious and say wanted gatekeeper, inquisitor, cardinal, that sort of thing, and if one were leaning that way, then remaining in the assembly of the way might be an interesting path to that in that direction from a purely sort of ambition perspective. As you say, Solas, there's a lot a priest of the way can do. I understand there are a number of like priests of the way are quite useful on board ship when you need someone to be able to cover all of the cover all the virtues for or in small remote communities. So,
although I think that might be a perception thing, really. Because I could do a lot of this preach if I wanted to. I don't think that by having taken meditation, I became less capable of talking about prosperity, for example.
Oh, yeah, I guess, yeah, that's fair. I suppose I'm thinking in terms of whether people will come to you. Like if I was...
Yeah, absolutely, and perception does matter.
Yes.
I love the theological discussion I have while at Anvil, but I am very much aware that I'm only seeing a certain portion of it because of because of who I am.
No, yes, with the particular responsibilities that you have and what you end up doing in Anvil.
But also as a questor of those and who the priest of wisdom, there are just discussions which wouldn't think to involve me, even though I might have an opinion.
Oh, fair enough. Right. Yes. Thank you very much for the question. Right. I shall move on to the other ones that we were going here, and we're back in the league again, but in a slightly different city. Troubled in Temeshwar. They them pronouns. It's important to know your loyalties, and I've always been loyal to my family. But lately, I've discovered that my uncle is in fact an inhuman monstrosity. Is it okay to still be loyal to him as a family member, or is that idolatry? I feel we need a Varushkin right now, really.
Yes. So, idolatry is actually quite specific.
It's a very specific thing, isn't it? Yes. You're not actually worshipping the thing in question.
No, if you want letting them tell you what to do, and do it unquestioningly.
To subsume human will, or whatever it was.
Indeed.
Yes.
Then it depends how that loyalty is expressed. It is, and I may be upsetting some highborn here, but it is acceptable to treat with Eternals. It is acceptable to make deals with Eternals, but it is not acceptable to pledge fealty to them, to do what they say without any expectation.
Using your own judgment, yeah.
Yes, well, in a very kind of base and dirty way, but without getting something out of it.
Oh, all right, yes, deals, as it were. Deals are fine. Supplications are not.
It hadn't even got to be necessarily a formally explicit deal. I am, as I'm sure many of my colleagues are, all for exploiting Eternals, essentially.
Exploiting? Yes, that's a good way for it.
And that is there is a fine line, a wide chasm rather between that and idolatry, and just make sure you're on the right side. And loyalty to a venerated family figure, you might well do what they ask, and so that if in this situation in particular, that should be analysed very carefully. But loyalty is actually one of the virtues I am worth talking about, because of all the forms it can take, because of all the hierarchy has always. I don't have a good answer for how one should arrange one's loyalties.
Yes, as far as I understand, one is supposed to arrange one's loyalty according to the way one's heart goes.
Oh,
so
absolutely. But I find it very hard to give advice about it.
It's so an inhuman monstrosity. How inhuman is the unhuman monstrosity is the question I ask here. There are a number of... Like, does it remember anything about being your family member? Does it still care for you and love you as a family member? Like, I mean, there's plenty of... I understand there are tales of people who were falling in love with heralds. And I've honestly thought that was fascinating. Imagine, from a Dornish perspective, from a glory perspective, imagine a herald, an immortal being that remembers you exist for the rest of its long, long lifespan, tells stories about you, even long after your particular incarnation has passed into the labyrinth. That is a deeply and terrifyingly glorious thing, but also potentially a troublesome one. Again, if you, as you rightly point out, if you are not subsuming your will to this whatever this inhuman monstrosity is, if you are not obeying it unquestioningly, worshipping it, if you are merely engaging with it, possibly keep an eye on your virtue, but it seems alright. Now, if this is an inhuman monstrosity that's going around, for instance, wiping out entire villages, having a serious effect on local people's ability to, or causing fear, terror, enslaving people, and it depends on the behaviour of the inhuman monstrosity. But
at the same time, I think no bond of loyalty is absolute. If your human uncle were doing those things, then there will be discussions to be had. Yes.
Yeah, it'd be perfectly within your right to do the same with your non-inhuman monstrosity uncle or whatever. Yeah, it's just very much a case-by-case basis, isn't it? I mean, if we were to say that engaging with inhuman monstrosities was inherently unvirtuous, we might have the Invershkin National Assembly might have some things to talk about there, even from the perspective of their pride as a nation. So, yes, I think, yes, you can still be loyal to him as a family member. I don't think it's idolatry, but you'd have to keep a good old eye on how human said uncle stayed, essentially.
Absolutely. This could cover a wide base of circumstances, and the way it's just simply described does concern me a bit. As,
yes.
Because many human things, like heralds or things of the realms, aren't always around. They come and visit. Something which is has been a human and deceiving you for 20 years or something rings a lot of alarm bells for me. Purely as someone who deals with combating spiritual and magical threats.
Oh, yes. That's another question. Is the unhuman monstrosity currently trapping a human soul?
Why is it impersonating this person?
Yes, it is or is there presumably any human soul is now headed into the labyrinth, we would hope?
You should something you definitely should do is make sure that everyone who interacts with it knows this thing. If you've only just learnt, if people are unwittingly doing the request of their kind elderly uncle without knowing that they're something else, that is a big problem.
Yes, definitely. They're reacting without sufficient information, presumably, and therefore unwisely. Oh.
Yes, I would say that this person has a responsibility to inform people around this individual.
Regarding Uncle Radovich, there are some things I need to inform you. That kind of thing.
Indeed.
FYI. There might be more fangs than you're expecting. Just, there. Alright, yes, right, fair enough. Next question, I suspect. Right. So this one is from Pillar of the Community. She, her pronouns. I'm trying to be vigilant, but my neighbour says I'm just nosy and rude. How do I act virtuously vigilant to prove them wrong? This feels like one of those questions where there's a lot of missing information.
Yes. So, and I don't want to cast aspersions either on the person who submitted the question or their neighbour, but I would say that if the whole scope of your interaction with vigilance is things which could be perceived as being nosy on your neighbour, and that's it, then it doesn't sound like you're exploring the virtue to, as best you could. Trying to be very diplomatic here.
Diplomatic, yes. I am not diplomatic in the remotest bit. Right. So let's think of two scenarios here. Let's as an example, let's assume that this person is some sort of knight who guards the border, some sort of count or whatever, who guards the borders, and is and they're being called nosy and rude by their neighbour, essentially because they are ensuring that their neighbour has properly defended themselves against monsters, has sufficient food and stocks to see them through the winter, that sort of thing. If our hypothetical person is doing that, then yes, that is indeed virtuously vigilant. Carry on. Your neighbour is responding in a way that I consider inappropriate. When you are indeed a pillar of the community, and you are making sure that your neighbour actually survives.
And the criticism may purely be born of ignorance and not understanding.
Mm-hmm. If however you are just Johnny neighbour who is peering over the fence and complaining that somebody's hops vines are straying a mere millimetre into their garden, then no.
Indeed.
Get better.
So on that latter, people often take the tenets of the virtues and take them more literally than they should be. So there's one of the vigilance ones is talking about seeking out poison in your neighbour's field, lest it spreads to yours.
Mm-hmm.
And that does not mean all you should do with all your time is spend your time watching your neighbour's fields. If you are,
it's a metaphor.
Yes, indeed. Especially if you live in one of the more border territories of the empires or similar, then there will be much greater threats which you should be considering, evaluating, and preparing for, and demonstrating that you are doing that, and that your neighbour is at an appropriate place. I'm back to hierarchy again, aren't I? But in your hierarchy of threats,
yes, fair enough.
Is demonstrating that and I'm thinking very wisdom way, but demonstrating that you've considered it would be a good way of showing that no, I'm not picking on you. I'm not treating you differently than these other people. I'm not giving you undue scrutiny.
Yeah. It's like you're asking how do you act virtuously vigilant to prove them wrong. Firstly, you're trying to, but okay, you want to prove them wrong. Again, this is another, like with the Carter above. You see, I feel like you are letting this person have too much power over you.
Yes, absolutely. What do they think of you in no way affects the progress of your soul along the path of vigilance.
Your actions are about what you do. Like if you are ensuring that your house is in order, that your crops are not poisoned and spreading to other people's fields, your actions by example may teach others vigilance, may exhibit others vigilance, but your neighbour's opinion on this matter, unless you have some sort of loyalty to your neighbour, is it your brother-in-law, something like that, then that muddies the waters a little. But your actions affect your soul. Your neighbour's opinions of your soul are mostly irrelevant, to be honest.
Yes, were this phrased something like my neighbour complains about my interpretation of vigilance, am I doing it right, I'm concerned, that would be a very different question. But
yeah, you're not actually asking. You're asking us to. This question is in fact asking, am I more vigilant than my neighbour? A, not enough information to tell. Also, there are things in here that tell me that maybe you aren't because of the way your neighbour is responding. Unless your neighbour's an idiot.
It's not a competition.
No,
You
it's
can
not a
both be
competition.
virtuous.
Yes, you can both be virtuous.
We will eventually all be paragons. Yes.
Yes, that's the ultimate goal, isn't it? Well, not for the orcs, obviously, but like, all right, there we go. So we are still good for time. I suspect we probably will fill about an hour. I've given us the 2-hour slot, but we may not end up filling the whole thing. So I will carry on through these. Are you right? Do you need a break or anything like that, or
No. I'm fine.
Okay, right. Let's carry on. Reclamation Wrecking Troop. They them pronouns. That's quite a name. My friend seems to change goals in company all the time with no clear overarching goal. Should I praise the courage displayed whilst they find their own path, or encourage them to choose an ambition and loyalty so they might better influence the world?
I think my immediate answer there is no.
No, just no. Moving on.
That neither of these is a good path.
Ah. None of the above.
Yes. As we understand, virtue, one becomes a paragon of a single path, and while I would caution against reckless disregard of 6 or 7 paths of virtue, ultimately you only need to walk one. And so if you think a friend is not expressing ambition very well, but it is exploring courage, then that's fine. I would say people should possibly. I need a better way of expressing this, but to use simple terms, hedge one's bets, in that actually you don't know your past lives unless you've been very fortunate. And it may be that your soul is well along the path to loyalty, and you just don't know that. And so I would not advise anyone entire disregard of virtue, but at the same time, picking one to focus on above others is right and proper.
This seems less of a, to some extent, a question about the general well-being of the person in question, as well as a question about virtue. So, if your friend is changing goals and so the part that seems true to me is changing goals and company all the time, which I presume to me means is hanging around with different people, one after the other, or presumably is being with one group of people and then moving on to another group of people and that kind of thing. Now that I would argue, or I would be concerned, means that they are struggling with things like loyalty. They are finding it difficult to, or even as a person, they're finding it. I've seen certain people, and sometimes I count myself in this as well, or certainly certain members of my family, who will go from place to place and from group of people to group of people because they have soured their relationship with them every time. And they and that is behaviour I've displayed in the past and I've had to get out of doing myself, and which is why I'm now happily settled with a house to be loyal to, who I'm very fond of. But if you are consistently changing group and loyalty and that kind of thing, and never properly finding the place where your heart belongs, the problem may not be with the company you keep, the problem may be with your heart itself, and your ability to be loyal to others, and your ability to have pride in yourself sometimes. Some people do that because they have been raised without pride. They have no pride in themselves, no pride in the things around them, and they constantly move from thing to thing, trying to find the place where their heart belongs.
I think that's only a potential issue, and if this itinerant nature is because they try to form bonds with the group and fail over and over again, that would be concerning. However, I certainly respect the idea of say, a scholar or an artisan or a ritualist, going to varied and different groups to understand their perception of their craft, in order to perfect themselves. Different perspectives are a powerful learning tool, and so if this person is in that way actively choosing to do this, learning from them and moving on.
Perfecting their ret, is it? Or
Indeed.
Yeah. Someone told me about that.
You spotted my hidden agenda here, yes.
Yes, not so hidden agenda.
So someone who goes studies with various different spires, for example, that's not unusual, and so it wouldn't concern me inherently. But as you say, it could be some kind of a problem.
So yes, indeed, if they do in fact have a clear overarching goal, and they maybe just haven't told you about it, questioner, or their reason for moving from company to company is to learn where their place is, to learn what they want to do, as you say, to find their own path, then excellent. If that's not the case, if they're wandering aimlessly, then perhaps you might be in a position to help them, or maybe find a priest or someone who, or sit down with them for a while and find out what it is exactly that they want. There may be something their heart is drawing them to.
It does sound like these two friends have not yet had a conversation which would benefit them.
Yes, this is another of those instances where I feel you should do the use your words thing that we so often speak of. If you have rather than asking us, but hopefully we can help you. You need to go and speak to this person themselves and find out where their heart lies, where their loyalty lies. Perhaps there's something that they're looking for and they can't find it, and you can help them find it.
And you could frame that as being concerned with them. You could frame it as being interested in understanding them. There are very different ways which may be appropriate depending on the friend of yours.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Okay. Right. On to the next question, I think. From Prepared Parent, she, her pronouns. How do you teach a child to be both wise and courageous? If you take them to face a monster, courage says to confront the beast. Wisdom says to retreat. What to do? Also, would it be unvirtuous to take a child to face a monster to teach them about virtues? This sounds like a misunderstanding of the virtue of wisdom.
And of courage.
And also of courage, yes.
Yes.
Common one. But...
Well, I'll start with wisdom, perhaps. Wisdom. Action is in virtue. You need to act to be virtuous. Somebody who only considers theory will not progress their soul. At the same time, what I said earlier about intent and motivation is also true. Understanding matters. If you understand that a threat is overbearing, it is correct and wise not to engage with it. But being wise is not being risk averse. Especially if you think that from engaging in some sort of combat, you will develop yourself. You will learn. This will help you go on to. If there are creatures which are plaguing a town, for example, then the first step in understanding how to defeat them utterly is to attack one of them, learn about them, and through combat is a perfectly good way of doing so. I would also talk about courage, and courage, you need to understand the risk. If something is entirely safe, is it courageous? Something is utterly foolhardy and certain not to succeed, would that be courageous? And very importantly, your courage and your wisdom are not the child's. And the child needs to make their own choices, make their own decisions. If you walk up to the thing, plonk the child down and step back, that is not the child being courageous.
The problem with a dead child is they can be neither wise nor courageous until such time as they reincarnate. So, perhaps doing something that will then result in a dead child is probably a terribly bad idea, because they're not going to get a chance to live that life out and do all the virtuous things they could have done, improve their life, and then proceed into the next labyrinth with a whole lot of virtuous behaviour behind them.
I think not to critique the kind people who have submitted questions again, but a more interesting question is: my child has asked to that they might engage this dangerous creature. What do I do? Because that's the child wanting to explore their courage, rather than it being the parent's choice. Yes.
Yes, but the child's actions that are important about the child's virtue.
Absolutely, and then you do need to make some evaluation. You don't want to stop them exploring virtue, but also I would again add many things. Understanding is important. People can evaluate their own risk, and the better they understand the risks, the more they can be motivated towards courage or ambition. If it's something where this is too dangerous now, this is why it's too dangerous. But if you studied, or if you acquired this thing or whatever, you could exploit this weakness and then overcome this 6 months down the line. Excellent.
So from a Dornish perspective, the way we teach children to be wise and courageous is through the glorious tales of people who did so, and generally speaking, preserved in the glorious tales of people who defeated X monster, is how to defeat X monster. What was done, how it was done, how the hero in question was gloriously courageous, and how they, there's inevitably a verse about how they trained for, with some mighty mage or something along those lines, so once that's the case, we're right, yeah. I seem to have lost Solus in some way. Oh, no, there we go. There seems to be a slight Heliopticon problem.
I'm still here, hello.
Ah, there we go. No, he's back. Sorted. Right.
I don't know if my mirror or yours, but...
possibly some Druid on the line, something like that. All right. Yes. So we teach the children to be both wise and courageous, and to exhibit other virtues, by training them, teaching them, telling them stories. It is possible to teach these things without literally plonking said child in front of a Rakshasa and going, "Have at it, lad."
Indeed, and there are progression things. You can teach a child about the use of magic and ritual casting without having to take them to a herald of something awful.
Absolutely.
By which I mean Wendigo rather than anything mundane. I realise that people's metrics for awful heralds may vary, and there are those who think they all are, but...
and some of us have more tolerance than others. Yes.
It's important to understand these things, which I will stop trying to bang on about, but...
Banging on is why we are here, in fairness, still. All right, then. I think that's that one. So we are still fine for time. This is from Mana Crystal Curious. What's the difference between being prosperous and having lots of money? Is there a way to be prosperous with magic instead, and what would that look like? That's an interesting question.
This has got to be part of my upbringing, but the idea that that money is having power of money, having magical power is more prosperous. It baffles me. But of course, you'd be prosperous by through these magic. Absolutely.
I suppose yes. It's like prosperity isn't just about money, is it? Money is part of it, but...
money can facilitate it. It doesn't even need to be part of it. And again, I'm sure that one of us, political authority, it's about creating things, achieving goals, what does this money let you do? What does power let you do? Having money for money's sake, having power for power's sake is not prosperous. But having money so that you can furnish your friends and family with powerful magic items, having magic so that you can perform great rituals to allow great deeds to be done is prosperous. But I don't think we need to talk about hoarding, or do we?
Well, we can. I mean, there may be people here who are not familiar with things you should avoid doing in order to be prosperous. So,
it is acceptable to accumulate sufficient, let's say, funds. But when I say funds, please do understand, I don't just mean money.
Resources.
Yes,
that has a specific meaning as well, but yeah.
Gathering until you meet a threshold when you wouldn't be able to do things without that threshold, that's fine, because you have that intent to do the thing, and you then do the thing. But just gathering to watch a room filled with things.
You're not a dragon.
It's you can make very flippant arguments about how you look to be rewarded for your work, and it might be that really what you're pleased by is rooms filled with shiny pennies. But I think that no.
It's. I mean, if I were to want to be prosperous with magic, I would do things like I would master the rituals that improve the prosperity of farms, master the rituals that improve the Golden Voyage type ones. Is that the one I'm thinking of? That lets you to come back with possibly there's a summer one that means that when you go out on a trading mission, you come back with more or something like that. Yeah, improves the skill of your tongue in trading or something along those lines.
I would go a bit further and say actually female prosperity purely in terms of acquiring resources or similar it is still too narrow. Mastering ritual magic such that I mean, I could give a very anvil-centric view here, but mastering magic such that the forces of Odin can deploy great feats of repulsion, for example, and so therefore the Odin contingent is more powerful, is prosperous.
Because you're using the resources you have in order to.
And you could equally go out and buy these sentinels and magi equipment and things like that, and it's creating value, but in that concrete sense, not the abstract.
But value that has, I suppose the orcs would call it worth, possibly.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's about deeds. It's enabling actions to be taken that couldn't otherwise be taken. I think.
Yeah, using the resource that you have to do so. Yes. So, it's there are a number of ways you could be prosperous with magic, and as long as you're using the magic as the tool to aid your prosperity.
And I have seen some comments from the gallery here about making sure you are fairly compensated for the work you do.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And broadly, I agree. I would say that if you are then taking that and using it to do better things, excellent. If actually if the work you're doing and the prosperity you're pursuing doesn't need it, then don't take it. Have that go somewhere where it can do more, or take it and give it to somebody else, so that these things can be used. Ultimately, if someone to pay me in herbs, I would have very little use of them. I could find a physic and get them to go and use them. But
if someone were to pay me for something in herbs, I would potter over to the Anvil Hospital and I would hand it to them because to help to heal the. I suppose if I was desperate for money, I might sell them, but otherwise I would just go.
But if a person who has these herbs, they probably know more about using herbs than I do if they have them, and so. If I say, no, don't give them to me, give them to somebody who can use them, that is prosperous.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yes, if I had no need of the thing in question, and I had no need of the money from selling the thing in question, or I could probably do without it, and there would be better where it could be done elsewhere. Fair enough. Fair enough. I suppose yes. There are. I am aware of people who might refuse due reward for a thing because of a lack of pride or because of a lack of confidence, because they believe that what they were doing was not worth that recompense. And in that case, I would say yes, no, do seek that recompense. Do have the
absolutely yes.
Yeah, your time and your skills and your craft are worth, and as part of pride, you should do so. But if you then wish to redirect that recompense to where it can be better used, then by all means.
Absolutely. I think perhaps this is me just saying this, much like everything to do with virtue, is not trivial and cannot be boiled down to a single sentence.
Which is why we have a synod.
Yes. And is why seeing the path of wisdom where we shouldn't use 40 words and 4 will do can often be very difficult, and is another tenet which is often misunderstood. Because often you do need the 40.
Yes, it is required that 40 are requested. Possibly not on the battlefield, but they may be requested in synod.
Indeed not, but yes, nuance matters so much.
Absolutely. Right, are we still good? We are now an hour in, but we do have more questions if we want to carry on.
I'm happy to.
All right, fair enough. So this one is probably better for you to answer, because it says lighting the way, she, her pronouns. Does the Urizen focus on light and truth through their hearth magic ever conflict with the way? Same question, Ari, Dawn and Love, isn't it a false virtue? So, first part you, second part me, I guess. Unless we want to comment on the other one.
Well, that'd be dangerous, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Dangerous? Dangerous, you say?
There's also a known conflict between light and truth and the way. The way doesn't demand that you be truthful, although that can come into question the loyalty, perhaps. But I'm not aware of any great conflict there. Now, if you want to talk about over any conflict, I could talk about Lucidianism, but that's not what's being asked here. So I can happily duck that, at least for the moment. But you want to talk about the Dornish situation, perhaps?
Yes, but then let's go back to Lucidianism. So, again, as earlier in this Heliopicon discussion, I referred you to the fact that the excellent mandate / judgment from Simaeus of Felix's Watch, may they pass through the labyrinth quickly, that love is a laudable quality. It is not a virtue. It is not a false virtue. It does not produce, as far as I'm aware, auras in the way a virtue does, and therefore it is not any kind of virtue, false or otherwise. It is like possibly mercy, confidence. It is simply a quality which can be laudable, or could be, or can at times be unvirtuous. Potentially, it could drag you back. It could prevent you from courage. It is a quality, generally a laudable quality. No, it is not a false virtue. It is not a virtue. It is, and therefore it is entirely possible. Yes, it could conflict with the following of the way, and that is why it behooves us, especially as Dornish priests, to ensure that the guidance that we give, whilst valuing love and glory, does not in any way conflict with the pursuit of the true virtues. No, not a false virtue, simply a quality, a laudable quality. So, Lucidianism.
Yes. Now, I'll start by saying that Lucidians are generally, they have often thought very long and hard about virtue. They are often excellent scholars on the fact. They will avoid virtue auras, but on the understanding that they want to develop their soul, and that they fear that if you act in a certain way because a consecration is making you, that actually doesn't develop your soul.
So Lucidianism is for the purpose of anybody who may be new to the scholarly ways of the synod, is the view that any kind of way is a distraction from true. Any kind of aura is a distraction
Yes,
from the pursuit of virtue.
Yes, indeed. And the controversial people will point to Lucidians removing consecrations.
Controversial people.
That's how people see the problem. Yes, but it is not that narrow. It is wider than that, and I think there are some very real concerns, for example, about overuse and overindulgence of, say, the Chamber of Delights.
All right.
Which will inhibit many virtuous acts just because of its nature. I mean, we as members of the conclave can recognise that. Yes.
Yes, there are a number of effects, magical effects, rather than virtuous auras, which, as their very nature, have come from the realms. Which, as we are well aware, there are many things in the realms which are not virtuous. We have referred to certain Winter Eternals, who I would absolutely consider not in any way virtuous at all, and in fact, probably frequently causing persons to pursue extremely unvirtuous behaviour. So yes, there are a number of rituals that, which, if overused or excessively used, could probably impede one from the pursuit of virtue. I mean, what would be the specific concern of the Chamber of Delights for those not familiar with the ritual?
It promotes passivity, inaction.
Yes.
It is fine to luxuriate up to a point, but especially for those who are perhaps susceptible to overindulgence, the Chamber of Delights will accentuate that.
Right, fair enough.
In many ways, I point to that as I think probably the most commonly encountered example, but also the day and autumn versions have also. They can be regarded as traps. If you walk into these things unwittingly, they can encourage you to stay and indulge in them and not do the things you plan to do. And it is the case that encountering true virtue auras can also cause your intentions and plans to change. Often, we do this with anointings intentionally.
Yes, someone comes to you and asks for a pride or a courage anointing, so they can do the thing that they're being held back from because they're
absolutely
fearful.
And Lucidians are concerned that actually, if you can't do the thing without the aura, then your soul is not being developed.
Oh, I see. Interesting.
And yes, it's not known one way or the other. I don't believe the synod in general is concerned in any fashion, but by use of virtue auras. But when these Uradeni priests come along and remove consecration on public areas, for example,
which is, I think, a crime, is it not? Even with a
no, spontaneous ones you're thinking of.
Spontaneous ones. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but if somebody consecrated the hub, Lucidians would. I think many of us would want to remove it. I think actually that might be a crime, consecrating public areas, but that sort of thing.
I think that it is frowned upon. It may be.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's towards the light trend. It's very much they are very firm on people choosing what auras to be affected by, and consecrations and chamber enchantments are dangerous because you don't know they're there without a lot of signage.
Probably put a sign on your thing saying there is Chamber of Delights on this. Please do not set foot if you want to keep a clear head. Yeah.
Yes, but most people in Anvil will not do that.
Yes, I've noticed that actually.
Yeah, and at the more extreme end, they will reject any kind of aura on themselves at any stage, so that they might pursue virtue better. But because it's reasoned in that way, I certainly I don't subscribe to all of it.
It makes no sense to me. You might as well tell me that I shouldn't have a drink if I want to relax, or that I shouldn't have some take a stimulant to wake me up in the morning, or like there are many. I am still choosing to do the thing. If I put a pride hallowing on something to help me do a thing, then I still chose to put the pride hallowing on, knowing what it would do. Still my will.
But that is informed.
Yes, but yes, I can understand that it's no good to. It'd be concerning if I believe there have been elections that were called into question because there was an aura of some kind or a magical effect on the building they were in, and people were not informed before they went into the election.
And that kind of thing, and especially if the magical effect, I think that's the kind of thing which Conclave probably would take a great interest in. We haven't actually talked much about the Conclave end of things here.
No.
Much more about the Synod. But I imagine if it were having that sort of imperial title election changes, then Conclave should seek to at least give an opinion on it.
No, that's fine.
I know what side of the argument I'd be on, but...
my side of the argument would be you should inform the people in question that you have the thing on it, that you have I'd be less bothered about the word script on mine. The equivalent, but it's an aura on a place, a virtuous aura on a place. Consecration. Yes. Would we be concerned about warning people that Chamber of Delights is on a room? Most definitely. Warning people that a consecration is on a room? Is that? It's a good question.
There are definitely Lucidians who would argue that you should.
Yes.
And indeed, there are definitely priests who will say that anyone removing a true virtue aura is doing a bad thing.
I see no issue in warning people beforehand, because, for instance, perhaps they've already got their own aura on them, they've got their own hallowing on them, that with the intention to do a particular thing, and that particular consecration, or that particular one, might slightly impede your ability to do that thing.
Will it?
Don't know.
And these things can combine in unfortunate ways.
Oh, yes, absolutely, yes. So, whilst there's nothing wrong with the consecration as such, that particular situation makes things difficult.
Yes.
All right. No, fair enough.
A bit beyond the bounds of the question there, yes. But.
No, fair enough. Yeah, we've wildly gone off. What was it originally? Does hearth magic get inflicted away?
But fortunately, I think the answer there was simple. I hope.
Well, yes, no, and hopefully mine was as well. All right, carry on. So the next question: reincarnation mystification. She, her pronouns. Do you think we still have connections to people from our previous lives? If I take True Liao and find out someone I've met now is a descendant or similar of my past life, do I have a duty to help them follow the way, /support them, /provide, etc.? Does it only exist once I know, or was I being unvirtuous by accident before? Number of questions there. I mean, the last part, you're definitely not being unvirtuous by accident before, because you didn't know.
If you are somebody who places a great stock in family loyalty before the vision, and you discover that this person is what you would consider family, that could raise some questions, but that's a very specific case, and otherwise, no. I understand that there are national traditions who will say that people are liable to come out of labyrinth.
Faradin.
Well, no, that's fine. But I was thinking
imperial nations, yeah.
Well, is there not a Dornish tradition that true lovers will meet again and again?
Us, yes, yes, absolutely. But if you met them again, you wouldn't, and you didn't feel true love for them, then I probably wouldn't have an issue with you not. Yeah. People fall out of love during these lives, like.
Yeah.
But I mean, true love really, it should be permanent. It should be from. There's the difference between what I should believe as a Dornish person and what I've seen in reality. And I have absolute pride in my national traditions, and I believe that one day that I will definitely find my true love. But who knows? Who knows what will happen? Perhaps I will have a true love for a little while, and then is it still true? It's complicated, really.
But fortunately, that's neither a question of magic or of virtue, and so I don't need to go near it.
No, it's a question of national traditions. Yes, I would be delighted to find a true love one day, and perhaps I'll find a true love one day, far in my reincarnations, where I will be a true love and that true love, and I will remain together for the rest of our incarnations until we both ascend to paragonhood together. I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
But yeah, I mean, more generally, true now visions are deeply profound things. They can very much help your exploration of virtue, and if you find that one of your past lives used to be a member of a Dornish house or an Ordaining Spire or a Highborn chapter or whatever, it is very people for you to be more interested in them. But I would say use those connections to learn more about who you were and what you did, and if you can, what motivated them. But their mundane connections should not concern you in this life.
Yeah, I mean, it's an odd question. Do I have a duty to help them do the thing? I would argue that we, so to some extent, have a duty as Imperial citizens to help each other follow the way as far as we possibly can. But it's not an absolute duty that must be obeyed in all. Like, if you believe if you meet your previous incarnation's great granddaughter, and you feel a certain, I've definitely seen people come out of True Lao visions finding that they were some great hero of another nation in the past, and then responding to or being responded to with a certain amount of loyalty as a result. Like, there are people who are ancestors of I think ancestors of Wintermark, or who are ancestors of heroes who were heroes of Wintermark in the past, and then the way that then the Wintermark people respond to them tends to be a little different, or some Wintermark people. Like, if you then gain a sort of deeper understanding and a deeper loyalty, or you gain a loyalty of your heart to something as a result of that, then and that can aid you in virtue, then yes, I would say there is a degree of duty for you to include that in your personal virtue or your personal pursuit of virtue. But like any such duty, it's not an oath bound, unignorable absolute thing that you must do. Right?
Absolutely, yes. I would say that would only affect a very small proportion of those who experience this thing, which of course is a vanishing small percentage of the people of the Empire.
Yes. So if that situation were to happen, then I suppose look at your particular circumstance, get some guidance from the priests around you and the people around you, and see how you. But I would say you were not being unvirtuous by acting in a way based on the information you had at the time.
Oh, definitely not. No.
Yes, I really wouldn't worry about that. It's very.
The only thing I would say on that is willful ignorance of information so that you can act in ignorance is a bad thing.
Yeah.
But otherwise, outside of that, acting on what you know, you can't be disparaged for, no.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I think we've actually, unless there are any more questions from the chat,
assembled citizens, yes.
we are now on the last one. So yes, we managed to go through them all, and we are. I would say we're probably finished about 3:30, which will be fine. So this from Totally Observant Highborn, he/him. Why are the 7 the true virtues? What made the Synod choose those specific ones? What is the punishment for someone asking questions before they read the prompt and rules? The punishment for asking questions before you read the prompt and rules is the embarrassment of having asked questions before you read the prompt and rules. However,
do you want to start this one? Or?
Why are the 7 the true virtues? After long discussion and debate in the Imperial Synod, to isolate which particular virtues are the ones which keep the human soul progressing, constantly improving itself and proceeding towards paragonhood. The Chin chose that specific ones over a period of long debate, and rejected the others as a result. Is that the correct understanding, as far as I'm aware?
Pretty much. I would underline. So we do not have a full record for this, and
yes.
anyone watching
Nikifor.
can imagine why. Yes.
Thank you, Nikifor.
However, we have to take something on. Eventually, we're forced to take something on trust in order to be able to function. And I believe the common understanding is that the set of 7 is well informed by truly our visions. And yes, indeed, and people who expressed what we regard as true virtues being noted to return from Labyrinth sooner than those who exhibit no or need false virtues. I know I do have colleagues in the Synod who would love to talk your ear off about how this set of 7 also makes logical sense within themselves.
They don't conflict with each other.
They don't conflict, and indeed, and you could not add anything else that we recognise as a spiritual force, by which I mean something we've experienced auras of. So, justice or vengeance, hatred, peace, unity, any of these things. We couldn't add those to the set without introducing a much more significant clash. I believe Cardinal Vivienne de Coeur had a particularly fond speech of that.
Oh, I shall have to ask her about it one of these days. No, that is an addition. I am more of a fresh priest than many, and I did not. It was only a few years I came out of seminary, so.
I do not like that argument myself, but I know it is widely held.
Huh. I mean,
most people I respect.
Well, that's fair. I can see how, like, hatred, for instance, is particularly conflicting of many of the other ones, because it essentially tells you that you must not not to cooperate with people who are different from you, which ruins prosperity, ruins pride, ruins.
Yes. And the false virtue known variously as peace or hope or destiny.
Prevents you from doing things at all. Yeah,
absolutely. Which rather defeats the whole progress along the path.
Yes. No. I can see how that would make sense. Yes.
What was the second? What are the 7 virtues? What was the second part of the question?
What made the Synod choose those specific ones?
Sure. Yes. I believe largely truly our visions. Because I think many things were codified shortly after that discovery.
I remember reading about a True Lao vision of someone who used to be the cardinal of something else. I forget which one.
Yeah. It'll be something awful like purity.
It's something. It was like purity or vengeance or something like that. I highly recommend the. Is it Livia Cascades?
Yes. The gateway. Yes.
Reading the True Lao visions, the records of the True Lao visions, is extremely enlightening for a priest, and in some cases hilarious. There are several that were extremely funny and very enjoyable. But
also enlightening.
Excellent stories. But largely, generally speaking, extremely enlightening on matters of history, international politics.
One thing I will say here is it is very important to understand that the way of virtue is an enlightened faith which we are continuing to develop our understanding of. And we have corrected incorrect understandings in the past. We have had cardinals of virtues which we not currently recognise as the true 7, but we have moved beyond that. And it is... I'm being very careful to word this here, to avoid any occasion of religious crime, but it is conceivable that there are spiritual forces which we have not yet understood or encountered, which could also be true virtues.
That's an interesting concept, that there might be some other force that we're not aware of yet, which does mesh.
For example, we only became aware that unity is spiritually potent, I think could have these auras, maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh, goodness me.
It may be known before.
Aware
forgotten,
or potentially re-aware. Thanks, Nicophar. Yeah.
Yeah, but in recent memory, we were not aware of unity being a spiritual force in the way that the true virtues are, in the way the false virtues are, and the way that the other qualities which you were speaking of aren't.
Mm.
And it may be that there are other things which can become spiritually potent that we just haven't considered yet.
We're just not run across them, essentially.
Yes, or they haven't been spontaneous. You'd think we'd experience most things because spontaneous always do happen whenever something is we believe whenever something is sufficiently strongly felt by the people in the area.
That is a real concern to me. There was at least one point recently where I was very, very concerned that there was someone who was causing enough fear within Anvil that I would be deeply concerned that we would get spontaneous auras of something unpleasant manifesting. That I am always on the lookout for spontaneous manifestation of auras. There was a hope one recently, was there, or something like that?
Back at the coronation of Empress Elizabeth, there certainly
Before
were.
I was in Anvil. Yes, that's right. Spontaneous hope auras. The fact that they can just pop up is of concern to me, and I think requiring great vigilance.
Yes, indeed, and I've had to deal with many. There was not in more recent memory when there was all that rumor about Varkula breaking out of her tomb, which I don't know if you remember.
Turned out to be a prank, I think. Alas. Yes,
there was a strange, not quite vigilance consecration on the Senate, which I dealt with, which was also or on the tavern, one or the other. But these things and are they actually spontaneous, or is this someone sneaking in and saying, "Oh, look, it's a miracle," which is a big day. I'm pretty convinced the Elizabeth ones were spontaneous, but again,
the deeply concerning possibility that there might be hope cultists somewhere in Anvil then is the other option there.
We have had people executed for having false virtue dedications before.
Oh, I see. Yes.
It's definitely uncommon, but not unheard of. And of course, we've had foreign dignitaries come in who openly have these dedications, and while they are watched, if there were a lapse in that vigilance, they could pass those on if they thought to. Generally, you'd think diplomats probably wouldn't try to avoid souring the relationship, but it's a thing to be aware of.
Aldwin has just said the spontaneous aura appeared after Her Imperial Majesty's disappearance as well. I was not aware of that.
I believe on her husband's belongings, the staff, maybe.
Oh, right, noted.
Yes, it's things which should be investigated because and things like this, as long as they're confirmed to be actually spontaneous and not sneaky, help inform our understanding of virtue and the development of the way.
No, fair enough.
This great project we're involved in.
There we go then. We've got the question for this person who did not read the rules correctly. Right, and so I haven't seen any more questions from people in the chat. So I think probably that seems like a good time to close it, as we are nearly at 3:30. So that's all we have time for this afternoon. At 7 p.m. this evening on twitch.tv/IdwinTheBard, that's IDWYN the Bard, or one word, you'll be able to enjoy Songs and Stories hosted by our wonderful Navari friends and featuring yours truly at some point between 8 and 9 in the evening. If you want to catch the rest of beloved civil servant Harry Harold's Zoom meeting, the details for that are on the Empire page, with the entertaining passcode of Ponyform. This has been Problems for Priests. Thank you very much for watching, and we hope to see you back in Anvil as soon as this interminable winter finally ends. So,
please do seek us out for these kinds of discussions. We love having them.
Oh, absolutely, yes. I can often be found languishing in the corner of the synod, playing on an instrument while watching the business go by, and watching out for something that will be entertaining to come up and that I can have a debate about. So it's goodbye from me, and goodbye from Solas. Right. Stay safe, stay virtuous, and hopefully we will see you in the field sooner or later. Bye.